apologize. I have not been able to get a hold of the presenters and the person who is delivering them. I don't know what's going on. I hope they will arrive shortly. I know they talked about it last night at the presentation they did at the college, so I'm not exactly sure what's all transpiring. I can talk to you a little bit about what I know about what's going on in Standing Rock, and we can make it a group effort, because I assume some of you have been following on either Facebook or through different news avenues about what's transpiring up there. But we can begin with the encampment starting, I believe it actually started in May, where people started to stay in to protest the pipeline on the Standing Rock Indian Reservation. It wasn't until September that larger groups of protesters started to show up, and they refer to themselves as protectors, because they are protecting the water in the mini Wichoni. Water is sacred. And so the largest encampment started then, and that's when you started seeing the most information about it, especially through different alternative news outlets. In particular, for myself, Dallas Goldtooth, who is a member of the Lower Sioux tribe community out of Morton, is one that works with the Indigenous Peoples Environmental Network, and he puts out a lot of information, and so that's how I started first hearing about it. And then, of course, through Winona LaDuke, whose site, do you recall what her Honor the Earth site? And so from there, what their goal is to slow down the process of the pipeline. One of the things that has transpired is that DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline, didn't have permission actually to start building the pipeline. Their permit didn't actually go through until it was late July, but they had started already in the process of laying that pipeline in last spring and the beginning of the summer. So people started coming in and actively protesting the building of that pipeline. And when I say that, that means they chained themselves to equipment and held themselves there, and they stopped the actual building from taking place. It has continued to move forward through this day. The pipeline itself is coming out of Canada, and it would contain fractal oil. And I don't know how many of you know about fractal oil, but it is not pure oil. It's oil that has chemicals involved in it, and it is basically a pollutant, and it can destruct anything that it comes within miles of if it were to be exposed. I believe that Mike said that there was a river in Michigan that was 20 miles, was it? 20 miles away from a fractal pipe, and the pipe imploded, and it basically destroyed the river, the town that came, that was around the river, as well as affected the people who lived there, giving them lung problems because the chemicals release into the air and cause issues for breathing. What was that? Oh, and people were delivering stillborn babies. And I don't recall the name of that particular river. It did have an indigenous name to it, and I know he corrected himself on the pronunciation of it. So essentially, because the pipeline is based in North Dakota at one of the areas of the Missouri River, it has the impact of affecting 30 million people and destroying the water source, not only just the main Missouri River, but all the tributaries that flow from it. So it's very dangerous in the fact that this particular pipeline can exist. So the Standing Rock Sioux community has been using their lawyers and it's their treaty rights to best stall the building of this particular pipeline, and the protectors have been helping in order to stall that, while the Standing Rock lawyers go to court and try to get it changed. We've heard different things. Obama has said at one point in time that he believed that a reroute of the pipeline should occur. but we haven't heard much about that, and I don't know if that's caught up in legality. But no matter what, the forcibleness after that issue was made, or statement was made by Obama, the DAPL continued to build regardless of actually 3 different times at the Department of, I'm going to blank on the name of the department that's in charge of the, what are they called? What was that?
Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes, thank you. The Army Corps of Engineers have told them to stop building it 3 different times. And they continue to do it. And they actually continue to do it at a very progressive rate, building it. Pardon?
Hawaii right now.
What was
I
that?
said they may be secretly digging under like
Yes.
Hawaii right now.
And that's one thing from the people that are there. They have people who have drones that have sent out, and they're looking and they do aerial views, and they believe that they're building. And in fact, then they put up walls around it, so that was made it harder for it to be seen visibly. So there's a lot of concerns with that. In addition to the fact that the Standing Rock Lakota reservation has treaty rights that allow them to decide if this were to go onto their land. One of the things that has been discussed too is that originally the pipeline was supposed to go through Bismarck, but it got rerouted, and it was rerouted south into the Standing Rock Indian Reservation instead of going around. Bismarck didn't want it because they were concerned about the health hazards it would have on their own community. But yet, in the ordeal with Standing Rock, Bismarck community has not been supportive of the fact that they would like it rerouted as well. So it's a real difficult time between the people, the Lakotas, as well as the non-Indians in North Dakota. And so we see a lot of racism ensuing, a lot of anger, a lot of newspapers not providing correct information. The Morton County Sheriff's Department perpetually continues to offer a completely different opinion of what is taking place as opposed to what the protectors have been videographing as well as taking pictures of. I mean, a lot of this has been uploaded. You can see it from that particular perspective. And one of the things that Mike spoke about last night was that the Unicorn Riot newspaper, media-based one online, that he would wear, he said the guy was crazy. That was one of the things he said about him. But he was like, he would wear a baseball helmet and he'd put his camera on the baseball helmet, and he would go up right to the front line and be shot at by these rubber bullets. And he said, you know, that guy really puts himself out there, and he's quite crazy in the fact that he's willing to take this type of abuse in order to get the information that he has to put out for the public to see what's actually transpiring. So the police forces in Morton County have used rubber bullets. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to see one, but they're huge. I saw a picture, and I know my mom and I both looked at it online, but someone held one in the palm of their hand, and it took up their whole entire hand. So they're not small, and according to Mike too, they're not just a regular rubber material. He even kind of questioned, I believe, if they were even made of rubber. Do you agree? Like, whatever they're made of, they're very hard. He also talked about the fact that they're not supposed to be used within a certain amount of distance from people. And they're shooting these point blank at individuals. So, I mean, if there's a protest line here, I mean, my mom and I are this far away, they're shooting directly at people from that distance. And in fact, there's a young woman up at Hennepin County Medical Center right now who's 13 years old, who was one of the protesters, who got shot directly in the eye. It knocked her unconscious. According to Mike, as she was falling to the ground, they then hit her in the back with another rubber bullet. Well, she was already unconscious and not involved. So unfortunately, the direct hit to her eye has destroyed her retina, and she is going to lose her eye. So it's terrible. I mean, what else can you say about that? The same evening, there was a young woman who was delivering water to the frontline protesters. That was her job for that, protectors, excuse me. And she had a concussion grenade thrown directly on her. And I cannot remember what arm it is for her, but there were a lot of nasty photos out showing what that particular, what the concussion grenade did to her arm. But she is also at HCMC, and it looks as though she will potentially be an amputee based on the fact that that was thrown directly on her. And that is one that's supposed to not be within 30 feet of people, but it was thrown directly at her while she was trying to help the protectors. So it's heavy and it's hard to take. I know for myself, the night that the water cannons were out and they were spraying people down, that I felt hopeless and pretty devastated. Of course, I saw all of this going on. By the time I checked in on Facebook, it was already been going on for 10 hours, or excuse me, 2 hours. It continued to go on for 6 additional hours. It started at 8 o'clock, and I believe it didn't stop until 4 a.m. in the morning. It was 23 degrees out, and they were purposely spraying water on all the protectors. And the video footage shows that they just followed them. So wherever the person went, they followed them with the water. Why is it necessary for this type of heavily forced police? There's no reason in my mind for it. The people themselves are simply praying for the earth and to save the water. So one of the things that Mike discussed, and I feel bad if he shows up because I'm stealing all his material here, just so you guys know. So all the stuff he said last night was that, so what we don't see in the footage that we have is that the protectors are protecting the prayer groups that are taking place. And they're protecting them so that they can do their prayers for the amount of time that they need to. They have a set protocol that they're doing. And so that's what the protectors are there doing, and that's what they're working on. So,
I have a question that
yeah.
maybe, I don't know if that's stealing his information, but I wanted some clarification about who is the main enforcer against the protectors? Is this the county? Are there feds? How does that thing work? Is it feds? Is it private? I mean, who's...
Well, right now, from everything you can see, the main enforcer in the state of North Dakota is the governor, DeRapple, is that it? As well as Morton County. And they are taking whatever initiative that has been given to them by the governor and enforcing the different things. DAPL is also involved, the Dakota Access Pipeline. They have mercenaries that they've sent out, so they have their own employees that have gone out, and they've actually caused a number of different problems for the protectors, because like right now, there's 2,500 veterans that are commencing onto Standing Rock. They already had, I believe on average, the camp probably has 300 to 400 people just that have stayed maintained, but it has ebbed and flowed from anywhere from that 300 to 2,000 at different times. And so we'll see it go up again here, but they can't all know who's there. They have different check-in sites, I know that, and they try to make sure that everybody checks in and that they have an idea about who they are. But like one of the mercenaries for DAPL was an Indian man himself, and he tried to bring a gun in and to create a reason for them to provide more excessive force than what they already are doing. So that's, from what everything I can tell, those are the three. We know that Kelsey Warren is the owner of the DAPL, or the person behind it. We do know that the funders that exist for it are a lot of banks. One major bank in Norway who funded quite a bit has already backed out. And there's a second that I've seen. I don't know if have you seen if they've officially? No, but they have talked about dropping out. And so those funders, they'll make an impact I do believe, what was that?
We have Wells Fargo in town.
Yeah, and Wells Fargo is one of them. There's a list of the different banks that have influence on the Dakota Access Pipeline.
The other thing is some of those banks are holding banks for other banks in town.
Okay.
I'm not sure the specifics, you have to do your research, but there's other
Yeah.
banks in town as well.
So
There's
yeah,
quite a
we just
few.
have to.
So there's quite a list of banks. But the governor also owns personal interests in the pipeline.
Dalrymple does?
The governor of North Dakota.
That's his town.
Yes.
Really?
So,
Huh.
and a senator, I believe one of the senators also was listed as, I could look it up, but was listed as one of the investors. So the people who are protecting it from the state of Minnesota are invested because it is coming from the Bakken field, which also is a part of another reservation, which is part of the 3 affiliated tribes reservation.
In addition to not only Standing Rock protesting and protecting the river, but there are also 2 other sites where people are currently working as protectors. One in Iowa, and there's one in Mississippi. And they've actually had quite a bit of news because the protectors have gone down and have chained themselves recently to machinery. In fact, just 2 days ago, they took out one of the backhoes, I think is what they called it. They kept it from running all day. I believe it was 2 or 3 young men had themselves, connected to it with those protectors will use those poles to connect themselves, but you can't break it. So they sit there, and I believe they did that for more than 8 hours, which if you think about standing in one position for 8 hours, then it's a lot of work. So my knowledge is all based on the different things that I've told you. But if you have questions, like to communicate, one of the things, yes, Rick.
I was going to say, I heard this morning, and maybe you can comment on this, they said that the governor has, I've heard 2 stories from the governor. One was that you issued this statement saying that they were going to clear out the camp. But the other was that this morning, the governor is saying they're not going to block roads, they're not going to go in and move anybody. So what's the correct story? Do you know?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I missed the live feed yesterday that the governor, did you get to watch that?
Yeah.
So,
He said it, and now this morning he's like backing up because it's unconstitutional. And so somebody has told him that.
That
Yeah.
he's overstepped.
Yes.
Yeah.
his
Like
authority.
overstep by saying they have to leave?
Yeah,
I think
that he
said-
was going to evacuate.
He was
them.
going to evacuate.
yeah. They also said he was going to fine anyone who brought supplies.
From inside yesterday, we heard that he turned away the Red Cross even. Now, I have not heard any more about that, but that was yesterday in the blizzard.
Yeah.
And
Right. Well, what I heard is that now he wants to negotiate.
he says that all the time.
Yeah,
Then he just
but I-
goes and rants and raves on a microphone.
So
Yes.
actually, my question was because of the weather. I mean, and what happened over there just 2 days ago, they had a horrible, horrible snowstorm.
Yeah.
And what were the effects of that on everybody who was there?
I believe that the camp has been doing well. They do need more firewood. That's one of the things that was discussed. And they are looking for more supplies, but I think for the most part, I think they're surviving.
So then how would you support their cause? Like, what would be some suggestions besides going there and helping protest? What would be some ways to support?
So there's a number of things. There's the medic, I'm gonna have to look up what was that? Yeah, Med Healer. You can donate money to their fund or send donations to them through like Amazon. I know people have done that. One of the things that Mike talked about is that they need blankets, and he said they've already had a request for wool blankets because of the density and the ability to keep people warm. But he said, no, we need other blankets too, because if they use the water cannons on us, we need blankets to wrap people up in to keep them from getting hypothermia. And he said, and they could be old blankets, they can be used, but we need blankets for that particular cause. And so that was one of the things he talked about. They needed firewood. It was old blankets and firewood was the thing that he stressed yesterday. There are, I'm going to botch how to say, the ochiteshakoli.org is also another place that you can donate to. Do you have a, okay.
Yeah, I think they have a PayPal account.
Yep. I know that there's people here in Marshall. I know a former colleague is going to be heading up there tomorrow, and she said that she'll take any donations that people have. We just have to get those to Granite. But there is also, Misty, do you know a group from here, right?
Yeah, there is a group, it's a Facebook group, it's called Marshall Stands with Standing Rock.
So you can request joining that, and we'll be able to get on that. There's some organization going on there for community events, as well as procuring supplies and taking them out there. But also, like, there's going to be
Is this right?
I think it's .com.
Yeah, they're both .com.
Oh, they're both .com.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know how to say it.
I was supposed to say probably.
Oh, it's camp.com.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's, put camp at the end and then .com.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, the first one's .org.
Does that make sense?
.org.
This one's .org?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's all right. I feel bad because I didn't write anything down. I wasn't, and I'm walking around with the. Can you read it? Just
I have
it's got to be
Kleenex.
.com though.
I have a Kleenex.
It just looks awful, but I won't
And
worry
that's
about it.
Medicaler Council.
What was it?
It's Medicaler Council.
Oh,
C-O-N-C.
All right.
U-N.
I'm going to rewrite it because it's going to drive me crazy now. Medicaler
Council.
Council? And that's .com. So those are the two that I've heard have done well in helping different people out. If you feel lost or whatever, I would recommend looking towards Winona LaDuke. She's a very passionate Ojibwe woman who is a lawyer and has fought for a lot of different Native American issues. So if you go to her webpage, and she'll help lead you in the correct direction, I know from there. So I would definitely use her as a resource. She's not someone who takes advantage of anything. She's very traditional. Winona LaDuke.
Oh.
So, pardon? How do you spell her name? And what, thank you. I don't know, I'm not recalling things.
I think the website is just honorearth.org.
Is it? I sincerely apologize. I wish that I do.
Honorearth.org.
I was going to say, I did bring your flyers from last night, I believe, are in my purse. If I still have them, I can grab them. There's going to be a meeting with the Marshall Stands with Standing Rock group. Was it December 17th? 13th.
December, we talked about 2 dates. One is December 13th,
Okay.
and everything has to be set up for that yet. But then the other would be, I believe, Tuesday, January 14th.
Okay.
I believe those are the 2 dates.
That's good.
So on the calendars, make sure those dates are correct.
Okay.
But the idea of the 13th is the planning and fundraising for the 14th, and the 14th to try to have a much larger group.
Okay.
To do as much teaching as possible, as much support work as possible.
Tuesday, January 13th, Wednesday, January 8th.
Tuesday,
Tuesday, December 13th,
Yeah.
Wednesday, January 8th.
Is December 13th is correct? 18th?
Well, hold on, let me
Okay.
make sure I have it right.
I have the Dakota 38 riders coming in, so they come in around the same time. So I'm like, I don't know my numbers.
January 18th. 13th and 18th.
Oh, thank you. What was it?
Yeah, we have
The-
January 18th. Yeah, that's.
13th and 18th? Okay.
Tuesday. January 18th is a Monday, though.
Oh, then we got rock. No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong year. That's the problem. Okay. 17. Yeah,
I will say, while Rick's looking that up, there's been some interesting,
Yeah.
is it right?
that's correct.
Okay. Interesting things that have taken place because it has been essentially a media blackout with the exception of the alternative news sites. All of a sudden CNN showed up yesterday and they have a woman live from the camp and it's kind of surprising all of a sudden that they're there, but it is getting more national coverage as well as press, and hopefully through that then the truth can be told because the protectors have been filming. One of the things that was discussed last night too was the fact that Morton County has been filming not only individually their cops as well as probably the mercenaries, but they've had helicopters that have been, they believe, doing filming as well. But when the Morton County Sheriff speaks, he never includes any sort of footage or pictures to prove his own opinion. And it contradicts what the protectors are showing based on their own video footage of this front line and what's taking place. So hopefully we're able to get that truth spread because there's a lot of negativity around it. I've seen just some deplorable comments about people being up there and that they're, it's just been awful. So we have CNN there. NPR has written more information about it as well. I've noticed New York Times. But I've also noticed that there's a number of senators that have called. Harry Reid spoke on the Senate floor last week about it. And so he spoke, and it's documented on C-SPAN. Cory Booker has come out and demanded a number of different things to have it be voiced, and there were two others. I didn't get to read the article. I just briefly saw it. But who is it?
Franken did.
Okay. Oh yes, and Franken has, and then there are two others that I was not familiar with that I just saw today, but I didn't have a chance to read it. So, to me, that means people are talking. That means people are calling, and that's what we need to continue to do.
Mention something that, I'm struck with this situation being just another in the series of extractionists and people who really do not, people who say that we need something from the earth, and it doesn't really matter what happens to the people or to nature or to cultural traditions. And we've been doing this for years and years, and there's so many incidents just within the United States where this has happened. And I think this pattern is, it's just really painful to see that, and we're probably moving into an era where even more of it can happen with our election situation, where money or whatever reasons somebody has, whether it's copper or oil or uranium, will take precedence over nature just being what it is, or somebody's land being left alone. And so I hope that, you know, besides the specific issue, what comes out of this is a real, you know, more of an awareness of how we just have to just be so vigilant about these issues. You know, it's, to me, it's just a, you know, people talk about from my grandchildren, like, there's not going to be anything left of it, we're gone. And, you know, I hope that that isn't, you know, we don't lose sight of that. This is a really important, specific issue, but we've had issues like this before, many, many times.
Yeah, it's very true. And you know, that was discussed last night, talking about the oil and the fact that it is a Canadian-based company, and the oil is going to be shipped to other countries. And the United States is just a carrier of it through a pipeline. We don't actually reap any benefits from it.
This one though specifically is coming from fracked oil.
Yep.
And fracked oil is different than an oil well.
Yeah.
Fracked oil has to be extracted in another way, where they use water and sand, tar sands and whatever else in order to get it out. So they completely ruin whatever they
It just
do with the land.
Yeah.
And then
use
there's,
fresh water to extract it,
yes.
Yeah.
you know?
And that's why it's along the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and
Yes.
they'll take whatever they need from the river to actually do from the
Yes.
rivers and nearby streams and ponds to do the actual fracking,
Yes.
to the injections, which is like a double whammy.
But actually,
That's usage.
No, you can't, you know what, they wouldn't want to pay to reprocess it or clean it up if it was possible. They wouldn't do it. It's just disposal.
One of the things they believe is that all of the earthquakes that are happening in Oklahoma are the direct result of fracked oil. And now in Cushing this week, they had another oil pipe blow up. So those are the possibilities. And if you look at the old Louisiana Purchase, that's what the Missouri River and the Mississippi River tributaries are. The entire middle part of our country.
Yep.
And Mike said something about, it's 500,000, I'm gonna forget what the those barrels are gonna come through there, and there's a 1/8 of a chance, is that what it was? Or,
1.8%
yes,
of the, so they have systems in place to detect any spill over 2%. So so if they're doing 500,000 a day,
Yep.
through the barrels a day through there, I did the math when he was doing that.
And he was doing-
9,000 barrels per day could go undetected of a spill, according to what they have in
Yeah.
place.
It's like 300-some-thousand gallons. Because I don't know how much a barrel
Oh,
is,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
398,000 gallons of oil
Oil.
is okay.
yeah,
Like that's
Yeah.
allowable. Not really okay, right? That's what they'll allow.
but that's what they're saying is
Yeah.
allowable, and that's
Yeah.
okay, and it'll go undetected. And we won't notice it until there's,
And these corporations lie to the EPA all the time about actual losses in volumes of their products, whether it's ethanol or oil, you know. Because these guys are the big guns, they're the big swinging guns, you know, and it is gonna be tougher and tougher as we go to fight them at every point, every extraction process. They wanna go to Arizona, they're in southwestern South Dakota, they're all over the place.
yeah,
You know, all we can do is.
Michele, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can just speak to why this is so important. I think, you know, we sort of look at a lot of environmental issues. I mean, we, like U.S. writ large, but this is, what is it about the river and the earth out there that's especially important to Lakota people and to the Panhandle people
Well, really, to all
I'm
of
gonna defer to my
us,
mom.
Right.
because like 98% of our body is water. And so it's important to all of us. We need to replenish that water in our body every day. And that's what keeps us alive. So that's why water is sacred.
And that's
Because we're made of water.
And that's what the mini Wachoni
Yes.
is, words describe, is that we cannot live without the water.
What does it mean to say water is sacred?
It means that I'm part of the earth,
We're
part
connected.
of the universe.
Yeah.
A minute part of it, but I'm part of it. Because I'm made up of the same things that it's made up of.
So we have to protect it. As Lakotas, we believe in a parallel. Everything is equal. We are all connected to one another. So regardless of human or to animal, to plant, to air, earth, fire, we are connected to it.
That's why we talk about, when they say we are related, that's what it means.
And Mitakuye Oyasin, they're all related, very connected.
Then, all right, then, just one more question, I promise.
Oh, you're fine.
Why take the stand here? I mean, because there have been numerous other places where we haven't seen this mass of people coming together. This sort of,
Well, we took a stand.
why here? Why this?
We took a stand and stopped the other one coming out of Canada last year.
Keystone.
Yeah. And so when it came time for this one, and when it directly impacted, because this is where they get their water,
Right.
then they took a stand in July, and then they called for help in late August. And that's when other people started coming, other tribes started coming.
There was a
And-
predecessor to it as well. Lame Deer Indian Reservation in Montana. It's been probably 5 or 6, it may actually be 10 years ago now. They had essentially a pipeline placed underneath their reservation. They tried to fight it and block it, but they built it underneath their land rights. And so they went into the earth very deep. And it either imploded or they destroyed their water network. So they cannot drink any, it's like Flint, Michigan. They cannot consume any of their water whatsoever. All their water is brought into them in plastic gallon bottles and things like that. So Lame Deer was one of the first Indian communities truly impacted by this particular thing, and they tried to fight it using their treaty rights.
Right.
And it didn't. And I would say there's prophecies on the Lakota and traditional Native American side that talk about this, and one of the things that we've always discussed was the 7th generation. And you have a group of young people who have been taught about serving their community, which is one of our rights and one of our values that we have. But then in our schools, we have taught our students that civic engagement is really a tool to helping us be more impactful on our communities and our society. And so the combination between being raised in an idea that your value is to express these things and to move forward to be a part of your community combined, I believe that they came together. This is a purpose for them. And then they're strongly held by it in the connection to how we feel about the earth.
And it was the of Standing Rock that chose to, because if you remember, Obama empowered them.
Yep.
He came to Standing Rock,
Yep.
if you remember. And
When
he
did
took those
Obama
kids
come to Standing Rock?
He took those kids to Washington, D.C. And he empowered them. So they're the ones that decided that they were going to stand up. This is our place. This is our country.
Yep. He was there 2 years ago now?
2 years
Yeah.
ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
They had him babysitting in no time, too.
Yes.
What was that?
They had him babysitting in no time.
Yes, yeah, they were joking around like right away. Obama's at an Indian function. He's got a baby within the first 5 minutes or whatever. He's hanging out. He likes little babies, so of course he's got like 2 in his hand. But he and Michelle Obama both went to Standing Rock. They were at Wachipi. They did a variety of different things, and then they took the kids back to DC. So those young people ran, they did a run to DC. And that
To
all
stop the
started,
fire.
that was August. And so then they went out there and they protested.
Standing Rock to DC?
Yep.
Yes,
And it-
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
yeah,
There was a veteran yesterday who just arrived at Standing Rock who had been told that he would never walk again. And he proved the odds.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah, and he arrived in Standing Rock. He traveled over 800 miles. So I mean, there's a lot of motivation in
I was living and teaching in North Dakota in 1967, 68, and 69 we moved to Marshall. But at that time, they were capping what is now the fracked oil places. So they knew then that they could use those eventually. And that's what they're using. And there were places at that time in North Dakota where you could see the burning coal on the ground because it scorched the ground. You would see them, they would be like 12 feet wide and whatever, and you could see them there, so you knew it was there.
They've been mining lignite in that area for
Yes.
years.
So it's a very rich area. And the corporations have known it's there, the oil corporations.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so,
So as they
When,
got all the easy stuff out, they capped them,
yes,
and now they're back because have we really,
The more
are
expensive.
we in that bad a shape that we have to go in there now and open up and just scrape out by weight or force or will or whatever, every last little drop they can get out of those old wells?
They consider
By
that new
shooting
technology.
fresh water into them and poisoning the water they're putting in there?
Actually, in the 60s, I'm from North Dakota, and we had relatives actually who were in the oil industry. I'm not real close to them, but Tioga, Ray, all these places in western North Dakota where the Bakken is, they were drilling in a different way in the 60s. Now with the fracking, they come in horizontally. They use the water and so on. They come in, and they have some other opportunities there, some other options that they use. And a lot of people, there's a lot of mixed feelings. There are a lot of mixed feelings about oil in North Dakota. And it's difficult for a lot of natives, a lot of people who are from North Dakota to see that what has happened. First of all, in the 60s, there was a big boom and then a big bust.
yes.
And many of us thought, it'll happen again, and it won't always be boom. And so when it happened in western North Dakota, with the Bakken and the fracking, or the use of that procedure, it was a big boom, and they backed away. It's not as what, things aren't as abundant anymore. Yeah, and then, so now this is, the pipeline, to my knowledge, is not running in a place where they're actually drilling. They're carrying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but they continue to drill Williston, Tioga, Ray, Minot, over there, yeah, the western part of the state. It's an entirely different place now than it was even 20 years ago. It's very difficult.
It is.
Many people got rich, or not rich, but they found money, and many people were displaced because they couldn't afford to live there anymore.
Yeah,
And especially when you're on fixed income, and it's just really
Yeah.
difficult to see that a lot.
Yeah. And it's easy to impact North Dakota and South Dakota just because there's not a heavy population of people.
Right.
So it's
No.
easy to have these things sneak in, and people have a very small voice, even though they might have strong voices. But I mean, look how long it's taken for CNN just to arrive at Standing Rock with all this other press and knowledge that we know is out there.
I really believe that Energy Transfer Partners thought this was going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of, I think, they were probably thinking, well, there's nobody out there, there's just a man, they're not going to put up with it anymore. You know what? Plain and simple, they're sick and tired of being told what's going to happen on their land. You know, and it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it's really super encouraging to see what's happening out there. We want to do everything you can to support them.
Yeah, because some of the ranchers that got eminent domain on them have sort of sided with the American Indian,
Really?
which is kind of interesting, yes.
Yep.
Which took place like in Nebraska last summer. You know, the Indians and Cowboys coalition.
I think a lot of people have reverence for land there.
Yes.
Yeah,
A lot of people. do.
yeah, strong connection to the earth.
Oh, very big
Yeah.
connection to the earth.
Yeah. It's very
It's
true.
a beautiful country,
Yeah,
beautiful country.
it is.
It's,
I'm born and raised out there. I have this incredible emotional tie to that river, you know.
Yes.
We went to Mobridge. We spent our summers in Mobridge.
yeah,
And it breaks my heart to think that, you know, as far as the corporations are concerned, that river has no value to them. There's nothing in the river that's valuable to them. Only what they can push over the river, pull under the river as far as, you know, oil goes. And what are they thinking? If there already has been a proven fail, such as in Lame Deer, is it Lame Deer
Yep.
in Montana? What are they thinking? That's like 100% failed track record. They're gonna do it again over here, you know, in Cannonball? What are they thinking? They don't care.
It's money.
It's money.
the company doesn't care.
The
That's
company
what's in
doesn't
my
care.
agree. The company doesn't care, just remember.
Very sad.
Yeah, you're gonna hear us rant and rave.
Did anyone else have any questions? I apologize again. I don't know what all transpired, so I hope that I was able to provide you with information. You can feel free to contact me if you'd like any follow-up. Again, there is the Marshall Area Stands with Standing Rock group. And I would just recommend, you know, following these sites. Well, thank you for taking the out of there, Paula.
On the Marshall Area Stands with Standing Rock, that's a Facebook group. I believe Darwin Dice is leading up that group. Some of you know Darwin, who's a retired teacher from the area here.
Yeah.
But, so if you know Darwin, you might want to contact him. But if you just ask to join that Facebook group, they'll
Yeah.
let you in.
I'm on Facebook and I follow Dallas Goldtooth. I follow the Riot group.
Unicorn Riot.
Yeah, and also Indigenous Environment Network.
Which is Dallas is a part of.
Yeah, but it's the bigger
Yeah,
international.
it's the national.
And I'm on there as Karen Knife, if you want to join in. It wouldn't let me, Facebook wouldn't let me go in as Karen Knife Sterner because somebody else was already there with that name,
Well,
Knife Sterner.
well, no, it's the knife.
Well, it's
A lot
Knife
of-
Sterner. It
A lot of
says-
Indian people have had a hard time getting their names on there because
Yeah.
there's, the knife in there is questionable.
But it let me on with my
Why
right
it's in
name,
there.
you know.
Yeah, so our relatives all have different, like, she's Knife, we have another one that's N-I-F-E. I'm the only one who got,
Knife Sterner.
I'm the only one who's got totally Knife Sterner, so. But I was on Facebook a long time before my mom, so.
I was just gonna say too, I have flyers, if you would want to help with the supply effort,
Yeah,
I'll just leave it up.
yeah, we can put them in.
You're going up there tomorrow, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah.
Will be for.
And
Are
her
you
phone
taking
number
the
is
blankets
listed
up?
on there.
Who's taking the blankets up there?
I'm taking some. We have limited capacity this time, but
Sure.
we're going to be working to organize a bigger effort where we can bring more things like trailers and stuff.
And I know Pig for Sean out of Granite is going up there tomorrow as well. So if you know Peg, she put up a thing on Facebook saying that she'll take donations. People have that as well. And it should arrive there if everything that the governor has said today is true. I'd be surprised if they're going to fight. What do they say? 2,500 veterans have committed to arriving there. So it's huge. It's huge.
Oh, he backpedaled on a lot of this. Just about everything that came out shocked us in the last few days, like stop people bringing supplies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We almost immediately backpedal on all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
you know, we can't really know. I would just try to go, you know,
Yeah.
we can learn from the folks that are already there, whether, you know, how true it is, whether he's really enforcing his policies. What he's got going on with that bridge, I think he's trying to maybe intentionally cause it to fail. He's stacking the things with concrete barriers, you know, that must weigh a ton apiece.
They've said they're committed, Standing Rock has, they don't plan on backing down. And even when the Army Corps of Engineers talked about removing them from the North Camp, they said that they would be going to a different area. So they would just move the camp further in to the reservation.
So is the larger part of the camp sitting directly in,
Yep.
right directly where they need to access
Yep.
to supposedly shove this pipe underneath the lake? Is that
Yeah.
what's happening?
Yep, so they're there so
That's
that
awesome.
they can't get down past them. Yeah, they're in a unique spot. And Mike did draw a nice little diagram yesterday. I should have taken a picture of it because he kind of had it placed and talked about how they were strategic and where they blocked certain things, why the one bridge is totally out. They blocked that on purpose because DAPL had come down and blocked them on the other sides of a camp that they had further north, which is the one I think that barricaded now. So they got removed from there. So, but he
That
kinda
was a small
described-
camp. It was a small.
It was a
spirit
smaller
camp.
camp than,
A smaller spirit camp.
yeah. So. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks for a good discussion. Good job, Michelle.